How do you end a show like The Simpsons? The Simpsons are one of the longest running shows of all time. Generations have grown up watching these yellow freaks getting into all sorts of hijinks, and yet, over time, the conversation about ending this show has only gotten louder. But how do you do this? How do you end a show that is ultimately leading to nowhere? This is The Simpsons. How to end a TV legacy. First of all, I should say I can't believe it's taken me this long to talk about The Simpsons on the channel. It's on every day in my house, it's my partner's comfort show, I have it on in the background when editing these videos. It is a constant loop of Simpsons, gritty drama, mind-numbing reality show, a quiz, The Simpsons again, rinse and repeat. So I'm not coming at this as some angry internet guy who hates everything because everything's become gay and woke and...
Won't somebody please think of the children?
No, I like the show, I like TV, I like the gays, they're a right laugh. So I'm not sitting here ranting about modern Simpsons being rubbish now and everyone, oh, it's the worst thing on telly. It's really not. Yes, it's definitely lost some of its charm and a lot of the episodes are nowhere near the comedy genius of some of the early outings, but it's not all rubbish. There's still some great stuff throughout. I'd also argue that an end really isn't in sight. We know it's been renewed for a few more seasons, we know a new film is coming out in 2027, and it's one of the most watched shows on Disney+. They're not canning this series even if people beg for it to end. It is far too successful. All that being said, it will definitely end one day. One day viewing figures will massively dip, or the cast will, stop. Or they'll finally run out of arguments for Homer and Marge to have and they'll call it a day. But how? And is there a way around completely ending it altogether? Endings are notoriously hard. Audiences can be fucking brutal when they don't like a conclusion of a story. And honestly, quite rightly too. If you invested hours of your life into a story just for brand the fucking boring to get to the throne because the writers couldn't give a shit anymore, you're allowed to be annoyed. But most series have to end because a single story can't run on forever. The good guys need to win or lose, the monster must be defeated, the will they won't they needs an answer, etc. The Simpsons doesn't fit this. There's barely a canon, let alone a running plot thread. This show doesn't need to end, it's never promised its audience a satisfying conclusion, that's not part of the draw. So without any storylines to wrap up or mysteries to solve, how do you end it? How can you meet audiences' expectations when they aren't expecting anything? Personally, I can see them going one of two ways. Either go big, or quite literally, go home. A big extravaganza of an episode is certainly one direction I could see them taking for the finale. A huge, ridiculous adventure featuring all our favourite characters, cameos left, right and centre, callbacks, parodies and a few heartstring pulls too. Honestly, this is why so many people thought they'd be ending with the next movie, because it really is kind of the perfect setup. With a theatrical release and a movie runtime, there's so much you could do to make sure it's the perfect goodbye for this jaundice-ridden town. The first Simpsons movie is pretty perfect actually. It's funny, it has a great story running throughout with some lovely emotional beats, so they've proven that this show does work as a film, which is something most TV shows can't say. TV and film are completely different mediums, and usually the crossover to the other doesn't land. So as they've shown they can make a good spectacle, it would make sense to bring the series to a close like this. It would also mean that while you obviously focus on the main Simpson family, you're able to get as many as the side characters in as possible without forcing them into a messy 20-minute adventure. An hour and a half allows for things to breathe, meaning that they could give a little more to recurring characters such as Moe than just one quick line. However, there's one reason I don't want them to end this way. I don't like it. I don't like it when a TV show ends with a movie. I always find myself slightly annoyed. I love TV. I love the simplicity of sitting on the sofa with family and friends and watching something in the comfort of your own home. I love that it can become almost a tradition. You sit down at the same time and watch the same thing. Now yes, The Simpsons isn't that kind of show. No one's going into work excited to ask their colleague if they caught last night's episode. I get that. But it's still a TV show. A film, fine, I don't mind that. But the ending being a movie? No, that winds me up. A movie for telly, an extra long goodbye episode, perfect. But don't make me go outside. Don't make me have to see other people and listen to them slurp drinks and choke on popcorn and splutter at jokes we all know weren't that funny. I've grown up watching this show at home. It's a comfort show, and if it had to end, I'd want to experience that exactly how I've experienced the series, at home on my sofa laughing at the good jokes and judging the bad ones. Also, The Simpsons might not be appointment telly usually, but the finale definitely would be 100%. They could milk that for all it's worth and the viewing figures would be massive. People who don't watch the show anymore would tune in to say goodbye to it. And I think that would be such a lovely and special send-off to the show, a show that starts nearly every episode by getting the family on the sofa, getting the entire family onto the sofa to watch it. That's just lovely, I like that idea. So they can go big if they want to, they can spend all their money if they must, but personally, I'd much rather they just go home. Is this idea a bit twee? Yes. Am I usually against tweeness? 100%, but I do think this or some version of this could work. It would probably need to be longer than a traditional episode, but here is a rough outline of one way this show could end in the future. Bart is at school hoping to pull off the ultimate prank. He can reminisce about some of his past pranks where you can parody TV finales being far too indulgent and reminiscing about the past. This storyline would allow for Milhouse, Principal Skinner, Willie, Lunch Lady Doris, all the school characters to appear one way or another. At the same time, Lisa is struggling at school, more importantly in music club. She hates the song they're doing, however she needs to be quiet and get on with it to get the extra credit she desires. Again, this storyline allows for more of the school characters to appear. You may have worked out where I'm going with this by now. Meanwhile, across town, Homer is suffering at work with the world's worst hangover. He's tired and, to be honest, even more useless at his job than normal. He doesn't notice the green chemical tube that falls into the back of his shirt, and chaos ensues. This storyline would allow for Mr. Burns, Smithers, Lenny and Carl, Moe and Barney with a flashback to the night before. All of it. Elsewhere, Marge is having the worst day of her life, running around town trying to complete her list of errands. Maggie keeps going missing, shops are closed, she loses her purse, just utter chaos. This would allow all the town characters to appear one way or another. I'd even have a bit where she drives frantically up to the Quickie Mart, however Apu is there with a closed down sign, Marge asks what's happened and Apu just says, "You all stopped coming here." Bart gets caught for his prank and has to write on the chalkboard, "It's time to grow up." Lisa decides that good music is more important than the credit and runs out of the room playing her favourite jazz song. The family all arrive home together, they sit on the sofa, Homer switches on the telly, and for one final couch gag they all immediately fall asleep, heads resting on each other. The end. Something like that. That's messy and, like I said, a bit twee, but I would love them to do something playful and heartfelt at the same time. I don't really want a massive parody on TV finales, a few gags fine, but not the whole thing. The Simpsons has been such an iconic show that it deserves a finale of its own. Is it a big show-off episode? No, but I don't think the last one needs to be. Something small and sweet with the vibe of the first few seasons would be perfect in my opinion. Because over the years The Simpsons has got bigger and more outlandish, so to go back to its roots with a more down-to-earth style would just bring the whole thing full circle. And it doesn't need to be this idea, obviously, and also I'm probably not the only one that's ever had this idea. I'm sure many people have had it in the past, but it's that kind of heartwarming send-off that I'd want the most. However, I don't think that would necessarily have to be the end of The Simpsons as a whole. What if it continued and actually became appointment telly in doing so? No more seasons doesn't have to mean no more Simpsons. Instead, I would have 2 annual specials that bring these characters together again every year. The first would of course be a Treehouse of Horror. Every year we get a little 30-minute horror episode with all the comical blood, guts and gore we've come to expect. You could even make these an hour long if you wanted, due to no longer having to make 20 plus episodes alongside it. It would mean you could stretch out a few stories that need a little longer runtime and have a shorter, sillier entry in the middle. They could still parody modern horror films, some good satire of events over the last year, just a good fun outing. The second episode of the year would be a Christmas special. Now, they could market the hell out of this, really make the Christmas special a new tradition of the festive holiday. Because The Simpsons started with a Christmas episode, and there's nothing more Christmassy than a family arguing over nonsense. Now, maybe I'm biased because I love when a show does a Christmas special, and I really think we've been lacking in them over the last few years, definitely here in the UK. My god, what happened to us? But I just think it's the perfect show that people would happily make part of their festive tradition. However, and perhaps this is controversial, I would do one thing that the show has refused to do since the beginning. Each year on the Christmas special, I would age them up. You would barely notice at first. I mean, Bart being 11 instead of 10 doesn't change anything really, but after a couple of specials you would begin to notice. Soon they're teenagers, Homer's looking a bit older and Grandpa dies at the dinner table. It'd give the Christmas specials their own identity. It's The Simpsons through and through, but there's a reason to come back every year, because things change. And I've heard a lot of people say they should start aging up the characters in the show, and although yes, I do think a shake-up of the main show would be good, I wonder if it's just far too extreme to do now after 37 seasons. It may seem odd that they just start suddenly growing. But in a special, I think it would work. You could make that one of the draws, and I think audiences would be more forgiving with the change. And you don't need to overcrowd it with all the characters from the show. Some years Moe's in it, other years he's not. I don't know why I keep using Moe as an example, but there we are. And the setting could easily change too. It doesn't always have to be around their dining room table. One year Patty and Selma can host and the shenanigans ensue. Other year they go away for Christmas. One year it's the school's Christmas show, etc. because there's no better time of the year to do a story full of satire, heart, family and friends than Christmas. I'm kind of shocked we don't get an annual Christmas special every year already. Would it be a slight cop-out ending the show and then not actually ending the show? Yes, 100%, but I'm fine with that. Like I said before, it's a show that doesn't really need a finale, so why not give us a few episodes a year? I'm aware that this video is titled How to End The Simpsons, and my answer is basically don't, but I'm nothing if not a letdown. I just think it's easy to shit on this show, and yeah, some of it is dreadful. We all know the Lady Gaga episode is bad, but that episode was 13 years ago. Get over it. Because in a time when the television industry is struggling and things seem to be cancelled all the time, I think it's nice that a silly little comedy show is still being made and enjoyed all these years later. Honestly, the only reason I want The Simpsons to actually end is because I'm worried it would get cancelled, and it would be such a shame if this show that has inspired so many creatives and inspired so many other animations doesn't get to end on its own terms. But if it's allowed to continue, by all means, let it. Anyway, now it's your turn. The Simpsons finale has landed on your desk. What do you do with it? How would you end this never-ending show? Comment below because I'd love to read your ideas.